Welcome to the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. I'm Margie Bissinger, a physical therapist and integrative health coach, and I am your host and guide on our journey to discover the keys to stronger bones, more happiness, and the secrets to live your best life ever. From nutrition to stress, from exercise to happiness, you will gain revolutionary insights from our leading experts. It is time for you to discover the health and happiness you deserve. Hey, Margie here. We all know how important strength training is for our bones and overall health. But there's so many myths and misconceptions. Well, today we're going to clear that all up because our guest is Joan Pagano. And Joan's a fitness expert and the author of internationally published fitness books and the owner of Joan Pagano Fitness in New York City. She has worked as a personal fitness trainer on Manhattan's Upper East Side since 1988, providing professional guidance and support to people at all levels of fitness. Through her work, she has created hundreds of training programs, specially tailored for individuals, groups, fitness facilities, schools, hospitals, and corporations. She's a regular guest on Dr. Radio's Healthy Aging show. And Joan is certified as an exercise physiologist by the American College of Sports Medicine. She also serves on the Ambassadors Leadership Council of the National Osteoporosis Foundation and is the proud finisher of 7 marathons. And in today's interview, we talk about strength training, and Joan really gives us some fabulous tips that make it easy to incorporate into our lives. So stay tuned. Welcome, Joan. I am so excited to have you here on the podcast. We've known each other for, it's now coming up to 6 years. And when we met, there was just chemistry. I just fell in love with you. And we did programs together, and we've really been friends now since then. And you're just a person who has given so much and has helped people with your experience, with your knowledge. And I'm just thrilled to have you enlighten all our listeners here today. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, Margie. It's absolutely my pleasure to be with you anytime.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So let's, you know what, before we get started, I'd love you to just, because Joan's very modest, you know, we know she's a fitness expert and has done so many things, but you've had very famous people that you've worked with. And I love some of your stories. So maybe before we get started, why don't you share your story about Jackie Onassis and the Kennedy women that you worked with?
Sure. So back in the day, Caroline was a regular client of mine, and I was training her at home while she was raising her young family and writing her first book. And one day I came back to my apartment in the days of the old answering machine tapes, and there was a message from her mother who said, "Hello, Joan. This is Jacqueline Onassis, you know, Caroline's mother," which immediately made me fall on the floor. Anyway, she said she was interested in doing a strength training program and gave me all her personal phone numbers so I could contact her and we could discuss it. I wound up going to her apartment on 5th Avenue overlooking Central Park. You know, she was one of the first people to be out on the jogging path in Central Park, which is now named for her. But back in the 70s, this is not going, my experience with her is not that far back, but she was one of the first people out there by herself on the jogging path that's now known as the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir path. But anyway, so I was training her in Caroline's old bedroom in her apartment. And it turned out that she was an accomplished equestrian, and she had always been a fearless rider. And she felt that as she was getting older, she was about 60 at the time, she was losing her fearless edge, and she was becoming more cautious. And she knew that strength training, specifically for horseback riding, could empower her both physically and boost her confidence, so emotionally as well. And she had called together a little exercise routine that she did at home, some strength training moves, some yoga moves, some stretching, and she was very, very focused on learning the exercises that I was teaching her specific to horseback riding. And I love the takeaways that my experience with her gives to other women, which is, number one, that strength training is empowering, both both to your body and to your mind, that you can do an exercise program, a strength training program at home, and that you can do it with minimal equipment in the small moments of your day. So that's a great message for all women. Strength training at home can be very efficient, economical, and effective.
That's great, because so often it's daunting. I know, people are doing their walking programs, and that's doable. And then, especially with the bones, then they have to, they know that the strength training is what's really going to make a big difference. And it's overwhelming and scary. So the fact that it can be put into your day and you're able to figure out ways that can make it so it isn't such a big deal and it's doable is just wonderful. So.
Right. I think women are afraid of becoming injured. It's the most complicated area of a well-rounded fitness program, which of course includes cardio, stretching, and strength training. And most people, like you say, can do something for cardio, whether it's walking or biking or whatever. And stretching, okay, you can follow simple stretches, but the strength training component is confusing and intimidating. And it doesn't need to be. And we're going to talk about that, I hope, when we talk about the basic resistance training exercises that you can do with your own body weight.
Yeah, why don't we start with, since we're talking about the myths and misconceptions, let's start out with that. Why don't you go through some of the myths surrounding strength training?
Okay, well, number one, the classic is that women are afraid they're going to bulk up. And contrary to that, actually, you really develop shapely muscles, and that creates a beautiful shape to your body. I remember back when I was first in New York, I had been athletic through my college years. I moved to New York City and stopped following any kind of an exercise or team sport or anything. And I was always thin, but my limbs didn't have any shape to them. And I started taking yoga. That was the first thing I did to get back to an exercise program. And I was so surprised to find that I developed a beautiful shape. My muscles in my arms and my legs developed nice contours, and my posture improved, and my self-esteem improved. And it was like, wow, this is fabulous. And I recommend that women not be afraid of bulking up, because instead you will develop beautiful contours and your clothing will fit better. So that's number one. And if you see someone who looks like, if you see a female bodybuilder who looks like they are really ripped, is the word we use in the industry, it's because they followed a regime of strength training and nutrition that creates that look. They are competing, in bodybuilding competitions, and it gives them that look. But a normal woman will just shape up. So that's number one. And number two, you will not get injured if you find, a qualified professional to help you along the way to get started. And there's so many options. Like we said, you can get started with simple body weight exercises that we'll go into later. And it's very manageable. You don't have to be afraid of it. What else? For bones, of course, it's totally, recommended for bone strength. So again, don't be afraid to lift weights. And just because you're thin doesn't mean that you have good body composition either. And strength training will build quality of muscle so that you have a better ratio of lean body mass to body fat, which increases your metabolic rate, which burns more calories during the course of the day. So even when you're not exercising, when you're just breathing, circulating blood, digesting food, you become more power hungry if you have more muscle. So just because you're thin doesn't mean you don't need to lift weights.
And the good thing is a lot of people who are listening, found out they have osteoporosis and they started doing weight training, but there's so many things besides helping your bones that it's so important for. Why don't you tell, you had told me when I first met you how your life had changed once you incorporated strength training. Do you want to just share that? Because that was...
Yes. Well, it started with yoga, and yoga is a method of resistance training using your own body weight. So anytime that you are using your own body weight against gravity, when you're on your feet, you are doing some sort of resistance training. And that in itself, combined with weight-bearing cardio exercise like walking or cross-country skiing or elliptical, anything that's you're on your feet, those are really good for your bones. And I didn't really start strength training so much for my bones. It was more like I liked the shape that was developing from yoga. And I thought, if yoga can do this for me, imagine what I could do if I start lifting weights. And so that's when I really started lifting weights.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I know for myself, I used to just swim, and, you know, here I was a physical therapist teaching everybody all sorts of strength training exercises, but I wasn't completely practicing what I preached. And I was doing some, but I was really swimming and biking. Those were my two big exercises. And once I added the strength training, it's just so empowering. It feels so great. And as you said, you burn more calories, but I think empowering is a good word that you had said before, because you know, when you have strength, you can do anything. You can lift your own things. And as we age, we lose strength. So it's just so wonderful to be able to keep increasing strength as you age. And what have you seen with the people you work with who have been doing strength training?
Sure, you become more self-reliant. You can, as you said, Margie, so beautifully, you can do things for yourself. If you're traveling, you can lift your own carry-on. You can bring your own groceries. You don't need help, moving your furniture around as much help. You can be independent, and independence is a huge factor as people are getting older. And when they discover that the strength training makes them more functional, that they can be more active, that they can continue to do all the day-to-day activities and the leisure time activities that they've always loved. Their world will not become smaller. Your world gets bigger if you're strong and able-bodied.
And that's what's so amazing. There are 80-year-olds who I see are helping me in classes, moving furniture and doing things because they do strength training. So it's something that just continues to improve and really, really enhance your life. I can't even say enough amazing things about strength training, because a lot of people don't do it. A lot of people, as we talked about, do walking and cardio, and they are scared of strength training. But as you said, it's something that you don't have to be scared about at all. So,
and you can start easily. I really want to make that point, that you can start easily with body weight exercises. You know, you don't have to start lifting heavy, and you will benefit so much from just learning how to use your body properly, proper form and alignment, creating stability. It's really a mind-expanding experience.
I think you bring up a good point, though. It's really, really crucial that you work with the right person and you have the basic knowledge, because I've seen people, people can get injured. So, oftentimes people want to do strength training. So some people will go to a physical therapist if they have an issue or to learn to get started. But then a lot of times, or people will just go to a health club and they'll be put with a certain trainer who's there. And it could be someone who works with 20-year-olds and the person's 60 and it's not the right person for them and they end up getting injured. So what can people do? What's your advice so that this doesn't happen? Because it can be so incredibly beneficial when you're with the right person. Do you have any suggestions on how people go about this, finding the right person to work with? I'll go to you, Joan.
Sure. Sure. Well, first of all, you want to see how long they've been training people. I have more than 30 years of hands-on experience training people, and not everybody is as old as I am, so they don't have all those years, but you want to see that they have some experience, and you also want to see that they have some education. So you want to know what certifications they have. There are a number of certifying organizations, and you want to make sure that they have one of the better ones, because there's ones that you can actually just do online without any practical components that are not as thorough.
Can you just tell us some of the good ones?
Well, I'm certified by the American College of Sports Medicine, which is one of the best. The NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, is another good one. Right now I'm taking courses by the Functional Aging Institute that they're offering, and I'm becoming very interested in what they have. You kind of have to, you have to look around, look online and see which ones are the most accredited. Then of course we have to keep up our continuing ed credits. I have to supply 60 every 3 years for my certification level. Also see what specializations these trainers have. A young trainer may love working with older adults and may be very qualified. But on the other hand, I have heard from a couple of people, 2 or 3 people over the course of my career, that a young man who was training a woman of a certain age was not really tuned into her needs and she got injured. So you do have to have someone who has a sensitivity to an aging body, and an older trainer probably has experienced some of the issues that you may have as an aging client looking for assistance.
You know, the interesting thing is also, and this is really important because we don't want anyone being injured. This is so helpful, life-changing, but you really need to do it properly. You can't just allow people, oh, I'll just go out and do this. But what's important is to listen to your body. If something is hurting you and doesn't feel right, you must, and the trainer says, oh, just go through it. No pain, no gain. That absolutely is not what we believe in. Right, Joan?
No way, no way. Any pain, stay away from it. I mean, you want to feel effort in your muscles, and sometimes it takes a little bit of experience for a new client to discover what is safe discomfort and what is painful and should not be pursued. But you may feel your heart rate getting, breathing heavier, and that can scare some people. Or you may have some, quote, muscle awareness from exercises that you've done, which is not a bad thing. It means you've targeted the muscles. As long as you're not in pain or working through an injured joint, we have to protect our joints, especially as we're getting older. This is probably one of the cardinal rules of training older adults is joint protection, preventing injury to the joints. Because if you injure your knee, your hip, your low back, your shoulder, you're going to be pulled off course completely. So number one, we need to warm up properly and protect the joints.
And the other thing, though, I think if people are informed, if people have the knowledge, I think then you'll know if you have a trainer, oh no, I learned this. And am I right, Joan, about that? That if people understand the concepts and understand posture and understand all the basics, that they're going to be, they'll have a basic understanding so that when they are working or go to an exercise program, they'll be equipped and they'll know what they can do, what they can't do, what the precautions are. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And learning all the fundamentals. I keep talking about these body weight exercises. I'm talking about things that help you learn proper form and alignment before you start lifting weights, because that's so critical. Get the fundamentals down first. And then if you want to go further and you want to lift weights or work out with the strength training equipment in the gym, then you have a fundamental foundation that you can work from.
I see it all the time, and I just want to go around the gym. I'm so tempted. We've talked about that too, Joan. We're going through like exactly how to do each machine and how to do everything safely. But I want to walk around the gym and tell this person, what you're doing is really dangerous. Like you could blow a disc. And then this person, do you know that this is making your posture so much worse? But I really can't do that. But it's very hard to watch certain things that go on. And typically that's what I see. People will be in a bad posture. They're not using their core, and they're trying to strengthen their extremities. And so they're really doing themselves a disservice, which is unfortunate.
So true. So if warming up and protecting your joints are the first 2 cardinal rules, the third one is don't do what you see other people doing in the gym. Half of them don't know what they're doing. And they're doing their own thing. As you say, Margie, they're doing it improperly. Don't follow what you see in the gym. Get some qualified help.
Right. This is true. And so, you have some good resources that I have to mention here because, we're telling people to get help, but there's a couple things. One is you wrote an amazing book. And for those who can see this on the video, it's just called, it's just beautiful. It's Strength Training Exercises. I'll put the link for Women by Joan Pagano, but it's just amazing because it's so, I'll just show a picture for anyone who can see the pictures are so gorgeous. They're just beautiful. And you're very descriptive on how to do it safely. So that's, I think, a phenomenal resource. And I use that all the time because it's well done. And you've written so many books, but this one in particular has just gorgeous pictures, easy to follow, and it's safe. So it's really great. But the other thing is, why don't we tell everyone about what this course that you're offering, because it's I think when people take, why don't you explain what it is, just so people know it's available?
Okay, well, I can speak for both of us because we're both content providers for a new startup, excuse me, starting in January, called the Vitality Society. Excuse me, I'm going to take a little sip of water.
Sure, I will
too. So the Vitality Society caters to boomers and beyond. So our demographic is 60 to 80 year olds, and it's an online format, which is going to be so much fun. And we each have a course that has 4, I hate to call them classes, I'd rather call them modules. Classes sounds much too serious for me.
Right, because this is going to be fun. We are going to really have fun with this.
Totally. So my course is called Stay Strong, Stretched, and Stable. And then my 4 individual modules are, number 1, add years to your life with cardio, stay active with strength training, stay supple with stretching, and flex your mental muscle with exercise.
So
and
you're really covering all bases here, which I love.
Right. Well, it's the 3 aspects of a well-rounded fitness program: the cardio, the stretching, and the strength training. And then, of course, this piece on cognitive function and how all the new research that's being done that shows that our brains maintain plasticity, or the ability to change both functionally, physically, and chemically throughout a lifespan. This is so exciting. This is such exciting information for me because we're dealing with a demographic that is all concerned about maintaining their mental function as well as their physical function.
This is so great. I mean, it's funny because I was reading through all your modules, and the last one, oh my goodness, how many people are just sometimes worried, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of this person, or I forgot. And it can be scary as you are getting a little older, even that you certainly want to keep yourself as sharp as you possibly can. And the fact that there's research that there are things that we can do with exercise, and there's other things that we can do to keep our minds sharp, and it really works, is amazing. So who doesn't want to jump on that train and learn everything? And that's so exciting. But you've gotten certified in that too, Joan. You're
right. I'm in the midst of taking a course called the Brain Health Trainer course from the Functional Aging Institute, which is an online course, self-study, really well done, very detailed, lots of fun, like flashcards and things that you can play with, videos that you can watch as you're taking the course. And it's an education in how the brain functions and how exercise can help. And aerobic exercise, especially at 65 to 75% of your estimated maximum heart rate, really boosts the blood flow to your brain and releases a chemical that's known as Miracle-Gro, because it helps improve the health of the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for memory, learning, and decision-making. I mean, who wouldn't want this information? I'm all on fire about it because I want this information.
Me too, Joan. I'm coming to this module. I love this.
I want to know everything I can do. And the good thing is that people in midlife who begin an exercise program will benefit longer, even in terms not only physically, but also in terms of their mental capacity as they are aging. So what they found is just very encouraging, is that because while we're waiting, let's put it this way, while we're waiting for an effective medication to be developed, because there is none right now, that the most important thing is maintaining a healthy internal environment. Meaning we need to follow all the guidelines for having a healthy lifestyle. Number 1 is exercise, especially aerobic exercise, especially interval training or burst training exercise. Diet, sleep, what else? Stress management. The basic things that we know help people live healthier are what also reduce your risk for developing dementia or Alzheimer's.
And that's what I'm all about. That's what this podcast is all about, that just living a healthy lifestyle. But the good news is when scientifically it's been proven that it works, and we see it works. And that's even more reason to get involved and start these practices, because they're so beneficial and they're fun. You feel great. That's what's so nice. Besides being good for you, you know, you add years to your life and life to your years, you know.
Totally. And you kind of like find yourself giving yourself, or at least I do, I'm giving myself little brain tasks as I go about my day. Can I remember this? Am I focused on a conversation? You know, am I holding my attention?
Joan, give us one. So share one with us, because now we're all dying. We all want to get started because we're forgetting people's names. I'm just teasing. But sometimes I think it happens. I know, to me, it's on the tip of my tongue. What is it? And so sometimes that can happen to anybody. But yeah, give us one little thing that we can all do.
Well, that's actually a very normal part of aging.
I know.
And it's called, for those of us who are starting to notice that we're missing a name or a title or a word here and there, we're called the worried well, because it's subjective. Nobody else notices what's going on with us. And my course is recommending that the worried well get a baseline cognitive evaluation, which is very extensive. It would involve memory tests and computer activities and all kinds of stuff. But at least you would have a baseline as to how you are doing before things progress. So I think one of the most interesting things I'm learning is that the four domains of cognitive function that we're exploring in this course are memory, attention, processing speed, and executive function. So I noticed that my own husband is a classic case of ADHD. Now, who knew that this was sort of a brain health issue? I never associated it with the fact that he can't hold his attention, that he's constantly zipping from one thing to another. And attention is a very important aspect of brain health. So if you find your attention is flitting around all over the place, try focusing on a conversation. Really listen to the person who's speaking. Really get into it with them so that you're an active participant in what they're saying, rather than figuring out what you're going to say next as soon as they finish. You know, attention is very important, and there are different kinds of attention. That's called sustained attention, when you can sustain your attention over a period of time. Then there's selective attention, where you can pick somebody out of a crowd. In other words, you're able to deflect distractions and just focus on your goal. Attention is very goal-oriented. And then there is what else? There's divided attention, doing two things at once. They don't call it multitasking, but I think of it as that. It's like walking and talking. So that's divided attention. And then there's set switching, or attention switching, where you're doing one thing, like you're in a conversation and you stop that conversation to schedule a meeting. And then you go back to the conversation. So it's set switching from one form of attention to another. So I think if we all just start focusing on attention, and this is so helpful too, Margie, for an area that I know you're very interested in, which is meditation. That's another great way. You know, maybe you want to say a word about that in your happiness course that's coming up too.
Oh, okay, sure. So the interesting thing is I was the worst multitasker. I lived a lot of my years in my 20s, major multitasking, having three things while I'm eating lunch, having three things available. You know, I'm reading, I'm doing some work, I'm shoving the food in. I was the worst multitasker. And the truth is, what I've learned is that creates stress, creates cortisol, which is bad for everything. You know, it affects our bones negatively. It affects our blood sugar, our blood pressure. It affects really our health completely. And so now I've completely, switched from that, and that I'm super relaxed when I eat, do one thing at a time, focusing on my food and focusing on one thing at a time. We don't need to do a million things. We need to do one thing, do it well, and focus. And you live being present, and that's such a different energy when you're present in your life than when you're scattered doing so many different things. So I love the fact that you said about the focus. On my course, so I like the Vitality Society mission, and I was so excited when I met Meredith, who's starting the Vitality Society. which is launching in January. So it's just around the corner. And what her mission is to inspire people 60 and better, she calls it, to live a longer and healthier life with purpose and pleasure. And what a great mission. So you're doing the exercise and all that. So I'm doing a happiness course and teaching different how we can be happy from the inside out. And, just about the foundation of happiness, how to be a victor in life, not a victim, how our minds can be negative. What can we do for more positivity? Because so many people walk around with a dark cloud following them, and they just sort of view the world with negativity. And then I'm going to talk about health, how to stay healthy so that also keeps your cells happy, and how to live from the heart. So it's part one of its 4 weeks. And yeah, so I'm excited. I'll have information in the show notes. And if anyone wants to learn more about this, you just go to vitality-society.com and there'll be all the information. But it's not expensive. And I think it's a platform. So, because, a lot of times when people get older, they become isolated. And that's scary because they've shown all societies that being an integral part of a society is so important, and having relationships and not being on your own. So that's really the mission, to do things and have support, and just so that you can age with fun, passion, and pleasure, what we're looking for. So yeah.
Great.
So it's very exciting. I'm very excited about this. But your course sounds amazing, Joan, and I really do believe it's going to give people the basics so that they can. Because I think knowledge is power, and you've always said that. I know when I've heard you speak, you're a big believer in knowledge is power. So if you understand the basics, that's very different going into a strength training program or going into even a class. If you understand what your purpose is and what you should be doing. So I'm just a big believer of learning as much as you possibly can.
Well said, Margie. Well said. Totally. Yes.
So there's so much. We could talk forever because Joan and I go on and on. Is there any other things things you've seen with people that you want to share? Or is there any other things that you want to enlighten everyone to?
Yes, I just want to talk about these 4 body weight exercises. I call them the 4 for life, because they are just classic, timeless exercises that everybody should learn to do, especially if you're a beginner, but they should be incorporated into any exercise program. And the number 1 exercise for life is a squat, because it's the move that we need to get up from a seated position, from a chair, from a toilet, from a bathtub. And you can do a number of variations of a squat. You could do a wall slide against the wall if you have knee issues, or you can do a sit to stand. Even my mother, when she was in the wheelchair, could do 10 sit to stand squats before you do a stand to sit squat. So that works 3 major muscle groups of the lower body: the glutes, the quads, and the hamstrings. How effective and efficient is that one move? Then if you go to push-ups, you get 3 muscle groups of the upper body: the chest, the shoulder, and the tricep in the back of the arm. And again, you can pick a variation that works for you. You can do a wall push-up, which is the least stress on the upper body. You can move to a diagonal push-up against the kitchen counter, which you're shifting a little bit more body weight, so a little bit more stimulus to those muscles, before you get down to the floor and do maybe a half push-up from the knees, or if you're motivated, a full push-up. But people love the diagonal push-up against the kitchen sink because you don't have to get down to the floor to do it. Anyway, so you have 6 major muscle groups between a squat and a push-up, and then you do something for your core, which would be some sort of abdominal hollowing, like a pelvic tilt is one of the classic exercises where you draw your navel back towards your spine and you hollow out your abdomen. And we need something for the spine, a strengthening and lengthening exercise like a modified back bend. And again, within each of those categories, there are different variations that will work for everybody. So with those 4 for life, the 4 fundamental exercises, you have a mini full body conditioning routine that you can do anytime, any place, no equipment required. So that's the foundation of my strength training program.
I love that. And you have, I know on your website, you have great videos. You have some of the things that you can do in your kitchen. You have some amazing videos. You want to tell us if they go to your website, give us that information so people can have access. I know you have,
sure, this is This is all free, and there's a lot of free information at joanpaganofitness.com. But if you sign up for the Fitness Refresh program at the bottom of the homepage, I guess it's on the bottom of every page, you're going to get 10 little videos in a row. They come one a day. They're no more than 2 minutes long. And I take you through the course of your day, sitting on the side of your bed doing limbering exercises in the morning. And then there are 4 or 5 modules that you can do at your kitchen sink. When you're in the kitchen doing other things, you can throw in diagonal push-ups or plies or leg lifts. Then we go to your home office or your office, and I give you a couple of different modules of things that you can do to reverse the forward posture of leaning forward and working at your desk. And then at the end of the day, I was straightening up myself here. The end of the day, there are end of the day couch stretches that you can do while you're watching TV. So I break up, like if you find ways to incorporate that kind of movement during the course of every day, you will automatically have a more active lifestyle, and you will benefit from just doing things in the small moments of your day. So that's the Fitness Refresh program if you go to my website, joanpaganofitness.com.
Oh, that's great. And your videos are really good. I love your videos, and you do a very good job explaining exactly how to do them. So I'm a big fan of that. Now, I just want to go over for osteoporosis, because I know we've had some other podcasts on some of the precautions, but in case you didn't hear those, let's just go through some of the precautions, because it's really, really important. What we don't want to do. Do you want to say them, Joan? Or do you want me to?
Sure. You're talking about body positions that you want to avoid, like forward flexion.
Right, because not everybody knows that. So.
Okay, well, first let's just start with the 2 basic types of exercise that you need to strengthen the bones, which we mentioned earlier in the podcast, are resistance training and weight-bearing aerobic exercise, meaning any kind of aerobic exercise where you're on your feet. Doesn't have to be high impact. It can be low impact too, like doing an elliptical or a cross-country ski machine where your feet are always in contact with the ground. Both feet are not leaving the ground, as in high impact. So those are the 2 main. Now, if you love yoga and you love golf and you love tennis, there's some things that you probably should modify, especially in yoga and also in Pilates, where you do a lot of positions where you're rounding forward in the spine. It's called forward flexion. And if you have vulnerable vertebrae in the spine, then you want to avoid any force that would put more stress on those vertebrae. So any toe touches or rounding your back, whether you're in a standing or seated position, crunches are not advisable. So you need to modify those positions if you have any in your yoga or Pilates practice.
And the good thing is, I just want to interject.
Sure.
Sherry Betts was on the podcast, and she created 2 amazing handouts. So in her episode, I don't remember the number of the episode it is, but we have the handouts. So it shows you what exactly to avoid, what positions to avoid with osteoporosis in yoga and Pilates. So we have those links. Yeah. So, but you're right, but this is so important. And I believe that we never know exactly with osteopenia because they don't look at every single vertebrae. So if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, you really want to avoid the rounding positions because, there was a study that did show that there was an increased risk of spinal fractures. And we certainly don't want that. So it's not that we can't exercise, right, Joan? We just use neutral postures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the importance of learning proper spinal alignment and stabilization techniques before you start doing anything are so important.
So I think, we're not trying to scare because it's going to really help you. It's going to completely change your life, but it's just to be a knowledgeable, educated consumer so that you do everything properly and that you reap all the benefits without any of the negative effects.
Well said. Absolutely.
So that's great though about the way, your 4s. I like 4 for life. That's great. And
so easy, especially like when life gets hectic and you can't do your full program. It's great to default to them because at least you'll continue to stimulate the muscles and ingrain proper alignment.
Yeah, and one more thing, since you've been doing this for a while, and I know sometimes people lose interest, what tips do you have for people so that they stay motivated? And is there any little tricks of the trade that you want to pass on to encourage people to do their exercises? And
Yeah, it should be fun. Number one, it should be fun. So whatever you're doing, have a good time doing it. Maybe if you're walking, go with a group. I have a client, a virtual client in New Orleans who walks in the mall with her group of friends like every morning. Make it fun, make it sociable, change it up, do different things, try something new. In the Brain Health Trainer course, we're going to be looking at specific kinds of exercises that stimulate different areas of the brain. And one thing is that if you're always doing the same fixed routine, you're not going to get the benefit as if you were changing things up. So it's really important to change things up. Otherwise, the body just gets conditioned to the level that you're working at, and it stops improving. So you have to change your program periodically. Also doing things that are not fixed, like sometimes, even me, I go into the gym and I do my strength training circuit on the machines because it's easy, it's fast, and I'm in and out for my bones, basically. But we're seeing that exercises that are more like sports, like moving, that involve coordination, and I'm now tossing a ball, for instance, to my 88-year-old client who has dementia. I'm incorporating so many things with her that I wasn't doing. I was giving her basic safe things, and now I find she's becoming enlivened by the different things that we're doing. I've got her on the BOSU, on the balancing disc. I've got her catching balls. I'm giving her sequences to remember. So just find ways, think about it. Think about it for yourself. How could I change this to stimulate my brain too? Could you do 3 exercises in a row and repeat them? Or just play with it. Interval training. Interval training is really great, and it's really the number one type of exercise for brain health. And people don't like it because it requires effort. So I found that and there are many different ways of designing intervals or bursts, as you call them, Margie. And one of them, it's very easy to do, is to add 20 seconds of a burst and then 2 minutes of recovery. I was doing much longer intervals, and I was getting to the point where I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. It's too hard. These runs are too hard. And now I've switched it to doing the 20-second intervals, and anybody can do that, and you're getting the benefit. You're getting the benefit and not killing yourself doing it.
That's great.
But we have found, that's one thing this brain health course is teaching me, is that as older adults, we need to exert more effort. And it's a hard thing to do because we're at the age when maybe we want to be slowing down and we're thinking we don't have the same energy we used to. But no, you've got to work harder. It requires more effort, and you have to put it in if you want to see the payoff.
But you don't need to do it that often, which is good. So, and think about that. If you're able to do this and increase your bone health at the same time, how great is that? If you're able to maintain your bone density and you're able to maintain, your strength, it's all wonderful. So
yeah, it gives you a better quality of life. It improves all of what we've discussed here today improves your quality of life.
Exactly.
You'll have a better life. It's that simple.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been just so incredible. And I think one of the things I do with exercise, I just make it non-negotiable. It's just like not an option, just something that I do. And I know I happen to love the exercise. Because it does empower me. But it becomes, because so often you can say, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do this. But if you say it's non-negotiable, this is what's going to allow you to live the life you want, then it just becomes something you do. Like, you eat your breakfast, you go to the gym. Or it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't have to be the gym. But it's just, if you realize that, this is something that it's just going to change your life, and it's non-negotiable. I do that also with my relaxation, with my meditation. I just have certain things that I put in my life, and when that, it's easy to incorporate. So
it's great.
But anyway, we could talk forever, but I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. I'm definitely coming. I have to learn this. I love all these brain things, so I can get started on these good exercises, Lisa.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Margie. I always love being with you.
Yes, and we always stay in touch. So sometimes I say, I look forward to staying in touch, but I know I'll stay in touch with you, Joan. So thank you again for sharing all your wisdom, and look forward to seeing you soon. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Margie. Same to you.
Thanks.
I hope you've enjoyed today's interview with Joan as much as I have. And regardless of where you are when it comes to strength training, you learned some beneficial tips that you can put into your life. Joan talked about her website where there's great resources, and that's joanpaganofitness.com, as well as the Vitality Society that's starting in January, which I'm so excited about. And you can learn about both Joan's course and my course at the vitality-society.com. And both of those links will be in the show notes. So I'm wishing you a very, very happy new year and wonderful things, and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe on your favorite listening app so that you don't miss any amazing insights on upcoming episodes. And until next time, continue to live your best life ever. See you soon.